Okay, hi everyone. My name is Keanu. I am the host of the Superfan Podcast. Today I am recapping episode 1 of season 34 of The Amazing Race. Now, this is my first time ever recapping an episode, so I'm super stoked, but if there are some bumps along the road, those are to be expected, probably in all of my videos. If you saw my cast assessment video, I was going to do 2 episodes per episode of The Amazing Race. The first one being more of like an initial thoughts after seeing the episode, and then secondly, more of like an analytical deep dive breakdown. But I realized that with my full-time job, I don't have any time for that. I have barely any time for this, so this is what we're gonna do. 1 episode per episode. So, first thoughts, Austin and Nina, they were my winner pick, and they get eliminated in 12th. So, I clearly have not seen any spoilers. Not that I know that they're out there. Usually for Amazing Race they are out there, but I am steering way clear of it, and ultimately super disappointed because they seem like a very energetic and fun team to watch, and listening to all their exit interviews just further confirmed that. And so we lost a lot in losing Asa and Nina, but who knows what other reality TV stuff is going to pick them up. So the other big thing is that the cast seems uber competitive, which I love to watch on my TV screen. Last year's were competitive too, but only within like a select group. I know it's just the first episode, but I feel like holistically everyone just seems more on the same level, and that's gonna make for better TV, I believe and I think. So moving on to the actual episode. So we start off with this Bavarian log raft thing, and I did fact check Phil. This is a Bavarian tradition that stems back to like the 12th or 13th century. And it's actually, I thought it was at Nymphenburg Palace, but it's actually in a town southwest of it called Wolfratshausen. Not that that was important, but there we go. So at the starting mat, I saw that teams were not allowed to talk on the plane because people were shocked with Emily and Molly's story. Like, people's mouths were agape, which I like to see because I didn't want any pre-gaming on the plane or anything like that. And this was further confirmed in Austin Nina's interview that they couldn't even talk to the other teams. They didn't even know what country they were going to. Some teams thought they were going to South America, so I thought that was pretty funny. Throughout the starting mat or the intro, we also get introduced to certain teams. Derek and Claire, my faves from Big Brother. Oh God, my faves from Big Brother 23. It showed that Claire is the smarts, and Derek was like trying to pretend that he was not strong. But it's like, come on, dude, like, you're really athletic. And so they were giving humble vibes, but not like cocky that Phil was saying. So I was reading some of Phil's interviews, and he was deeming Claire and Derek cocky. But I think it was after this leg that he thought that Claire and Derek were cocky. So yeah. Anyhow, no. Oh, at the starting mat, Phil tells the teams that there are no non-elimination legs, and I love seeing people's reactions. Maddie almost like faked passing out like this. Again, mouths were agape, and I think that adds a new layer of stress. And apparently, Phil tells all of them this, and then he says, "Go," in a matter of 3 to 4 minutes. So, I mean, what a way to get the adrenaline pumping. And overall, I'm a big fan of this move that The Amazing Race is doing because I feel like it means that the stakes are higher, and so no team is expecting to stay another leg. Like, you're racing with all your might and all your strength in each leg because the risks or the stakes are higher. Okay, and I wanted to talk about the Amazing Race intro that they do with the kind of the cringy things with the poses. And overall, I love that this is still here because unlike Amazing Race, in Big Brother and Survivor, they don't do the intros anymore. So at least one of the shows does it. And I have to give the MVP award to Aubrey and David. their shot with like Aubrey doing the pose, striking the pose at the end, like that was I think that was one of the best of all time, to be honest. Quentin and Maddie's was a little over the top for me. And then some of the clips seem cut off. Like if they lasted just like a half second longer, it would seem more full or complete. I don't know. I'm not an editor, but yeah, some of the teams that are clipped off are like Marcus and Michael and Lewis and Michelle. If they only stayed like a half a second longer, I think it would have came off a little bit better. But anyhow, so Phil also introduces the Scramble. So I really like the Scramble. Now, I've been watching or like looking at people's comments on videos and getting just the general sense of, do people like the Scramble? Do we hate the Scramble? I feel like the casual viewer does not like the Scramble, but I feel like more of people who are really looking at the episode and like super fans, I feel like they're liking the Scramble more. The reason why I like the Scramble is because it just makes it more anxious watching, and I feel like we are put in the racer's shoes just a little bit for like not knowing where they are in the race. And so if you're able as a TV show to invoke that in your audience, I think you're doing something right. Overall, it's fresh and exciting. I also feel like the Scramble makes the episodes rewatchable because you can catch things that you didn't catch on first glance at first viewing. And as a super fan and as someone who's recapping The Amazing Race, I actually think it's fun looking back at what's been going on. So yeah, the critics are saying that it's too hard to figure it all out, but I enjoy analyzing this show, so it's fun for me. And yeah, so there are 3 tasks that they have to do. One is roll at Leopold Park, the second is saw at Beer Garden Sea House, and the third is smash at the Augustiner Keller Beer Garden. And when Phil is describing that the challenge is Oktoberfest themed, he says, arguably the tastiest beverage, an ice cold beer. And it's like, I'm not a beer fan, and beer tastes disgusting to me, so yeah, it's not true, Phil. Even though he says arguably, it's like, no, there is no argument. You can't tell me that beer is the best tasting drink on the planet. Okay, so this is a super fan in me, but I have listed all of the 6 options that you could have ran this race. So there were 3 tasks, and so that means there are 6 combinations of orders that you could have done these tasks in. And then I plugged it in to Google Maps, and I tried to see which was the fastest route, which was the slowest route, and see if, if one team picked this would have been better than this just based on the route alone. So what I have saw, I can't speak. What I have uncovered is that the fastest route was if you did smash the ice, roll the keg, and then saw the log. And there were 4 teams who did this. Glenda and Lumumba, 2nd place. Quentin and Maddie, 3rd place. Emily and Molly, 5th place. And Rex and Ryan, 7th place. So it seemed like the route that you chose seemed to help you, because all these teams did like front of the pack, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 7th. In total, the route is 48 minutes. Excuse me. Now, I took these, I plugged into Google Maps, and I think it was like midnight or something in Munich, Germany. So there was probably no traffic, and so these times don't account for the traffic that the teams had faced. Sure, I could have backlogged and saw the exact date that they went on the race and put it there, but I mean, that's too much of a hassle, y'all. So that was the fastest route. Now, 4 other routes, they were all like the same, like 56 minutes, 57 minutes, 58, 58. And all the other teams took those other routes. There is one route, the 6th one, that took an hour and 6 minutes. Its estimated time of an hour and 6 minutes. but no one did that route. That was if you did saw the log, smash the ice, and then roll the kick. No one did this, so good for them. And honestly, if you had circled it on the physical map, it wouldn't make sense to do it in that order because it just was too zigzaggy. Yeah. The other thing we have to consider is that the teams don't know where the pit stop is, and so you have to use your best judgment, and there is an element of luck then, because if the last task you did was closer to the pit stop, then you'd picked a better route, So, but yeah, let me go through the options here. So, smash, then saw, then roll. We got Lewis and Michelle and Asa and Nina, 10th and 12th place, and this would take them 58 minutes. I thought someone was at the door. I'm scared. I think someone's at the door. 1 second. Okay, no one was at the door. Okay, so first option was smash, then roll. No. Smash, then saw, then roll. 2 teams did this. Took 58 minutes estimated time. Lewis and Michelle in 10th, and Asa and Nina in 12th. So apparently this route had the teams all the way in the back. It's hard to say if the route played an instrumental role because these teams also messed up during their tasks. So you have to take everything into consideration. Second route, smash, then roll, then saw. Already said this one, it had those 4 teams. The third route was roll, then saw, then smash. Derek and Claire got first, Abby and Will 8th, and Aubrey and David 11th. So this shows that it's not all about the navigation in terms of what's the best route, because you got a wide spread from 1st to 11th. And so the difference is, Derek and Claire versus Aubrey and David, their ability to navigate. And clearly Derek and Claire are the better navigators. Then the fourth one is roll, then smash, then saw. And only Marcus and Michael did this, and they arrived in 6th. And then the last route teams took was saw, then roll, then smash. Linton and Shriek and Rich and Dom did this. Linton and Shriek in 4th, and Rich and Dom in 9th. So ultimately, arguably the difference in choosing an optimal route is kind of negligible in this leg. There's only a 10-minute difference from the shortest versus the longest route that the teams took, and probably teams have amassed getting lost and difficulty in the challenges that would account for a 10-minute difference anyways. So is it really worth spending 5 minutes to figure out which is the fastest route? Whereas if you just went ahead and just pick the route, you're likely more better off, and you're already getting going, and you're passing Austin Nina in the back. Yeah, and then other things to consider is that it likely took the teams more time because Google Maps optimizes the route. So as opposed to just figuring out in a map. So Google Maps, it will find the fastest route ever, but sometimes it differs than what you think should be the shortest route on the map, because Google Maps might take you to a road less traveled where there's not much traffic, and therefore you can bypass. You can take the highway potentially rather than taking the side streets, even though it may seem, even though the side streets is a lesser physical distance than the distance traveled through a highway that goes around like this. So these are things to consider too, because there's no way that you're going to pick the fastest route based off of a physical map than versus Google Maps that knows and takes account of traffic times and things like that. Yeah, and then yeah. So if you hear in the episode, there are multiple times where they're thinking they're going the most optimal direction, but then there's no like right turns, or you can't make a left, or they have to U-turn. And so they're thinking they're going the right way, but they just didn't know that you can't make a right there. And so then they have to go around the block, which takes, maybe like 5 minutes or more. So, I mean, but then that's the drawback of using a physical map. But in this case, it's better to use a physical map, because if you waste your time doing step-by-step directions like Asa and Nina, then you're going to fall behind the pack. Yeah, other things I wanted to note was that all the challenges were equidistant from each other, starting from Niflheim Palace. I wonder what it's going to be like in future Scramble episodes, because if it's more of a linear fashion, then that will just encourage everyone just to do like the closest one, then the medium one, and then the one furthest. So I have to imagine that to encourage a true Scramble, the challenges have to be equidistant from each other, because otherwise you're going to get a very predictable route of what teams are going to choose. Yeah, and then one thing I want to know is that the teams were smart enough not to do the one route that took the longest, because, I mean, if you just look at the physical map, it would look like you were going to go in everywhere. So, yeah. So, what do I think the strategy for the Scramble is based on one episode? So if I were to give advice to someone else or myself, if I run the race one day, we'll see, is that to use the physical map only. Use Google Maps to figure out where the challenges are on your physical map, but don't write step-by-step instructions on how to get somewhere, because let's say you're using your step-by-step instructions that took you 5 minutes to write down, and then you're bound to miss some type of step along the way, especially in a condensed city like Munich. And if you go off the route, or you don't follow the directions to a T, then automatically you're screwed. And if you don't know how to use a physical map, then you don't know how to recover. So ultimately, just use your physical map, because it's going to save you time, and you don't have to waste time. There's no need for extra credit, as Austin and Nina took. So Derek and Claire had the right strategy of circling each location. And then with a detailed map, there's no need to get directions. It's like you can rely on yourself. And when you're relying on yourself and not having to, flag another foreign tourist down, it's just, you're on a race. You got to be speedy. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah. So in the future, I think picking the route isn't super important. The order in which you do it. If the challenges seem equidistant to each other, just pick one and then go clockwise or counterclockwise. That's your best bet based on this episode. Okay, getting to the challenges now. So let's start off with roll. So I want to make a comment between muscular strength versus athleticism. What do I think is more important on The Amazing Race? I gotta say it's athleticism any day. So if we look at Rex and Ryan, no, Rex and Tim, right? Oh god, T-Rex. Oh, Rex Ryan. I didn't know who Rex Ryan was. Anyways, if we look at Rex and Tim and Emily and Molly, two teams that may not be the physical standouts in this cast, they get it on their first try. Now, military bros get it on their second try. So this shows that brute strength doesn't matter that much. You just have to be a little athletic and a little smart to be able to get the task done. And so when people are doing their cast assessments, honestly, brute strength doesn't mean anything, guys. Like when you look at the teams who have won, I think what sets them apart from the other teams, that sure, they might be a little bit more athletic, but are they the most jacked on the season? Nah. Marcus and Michael, it's funny because they did it fast, but they didn't pass on the first try, and it's probably because they just put the barrel over the thing. So I'm glad they got penalized for that, because anyone could have just steamrolled and done this. But no, you actually had to navigate the full obstacle course. There are 3 contestants that seem to have picked up their keg, which could have given them a penalty, but I guess it's hard to referee that. But on the edited episode, I saw Marcus pick it up, and then both David and Rich at one point picked it up. Even Quentin questionably picked it up before he shoved it across the finish line. Am I being a stickler? Yes. Did Helen get pushed? Yes. If you get that reference, good for you. But it is what it is. I really liked what Quentin had said in his confessional when he was pushing the keg. He said, I operate under like my sports background. You never look at the clock. You know, you push it until, you know, like the fat lady sings. Which is great, because had he not had the hustle at the very end, they likely would have had done it again and then wasted another 5 minutes total or something like that. So I'm gonna steal that. That's good advice, Quentin. Good advice. And then honestly, Rich is a hot mess too. Rich and Dom, they're hot messes. Rich like tried to go over that bridge and just it always fell to the side, swiveled. He just could not get this thing over the bridge, and it was honestly funny, but also frustrating. So I just had to mention that because it was so bad. Okay, next challenge is Saw. Now, with all Amazing Race challenges, I feel like you have to ask yourself this question. Should it be this hard? And usually the answer is no. This challenge shouldn't have been that hard. There is always a technique, and you know, if you haven't figured it out, it's best to look at what other teams are doing. So Austin and Nina, even though they got eliminated, did say that they were observing how Abby and Will were doing it, and it was going like butter. And they noticed that short bounce back and forth, only pulling, no pushing, seemed to get the job done, and then they incorporated it into their strategy. So it's important to be looking out at what other teams are doing so you can use it to your own benefit. And it's not necessarily cheating, because it's like, you know, everyone's out in the open here. It's not like it was a math challenge and then a team wrote it on a piece of chalkboard, showed it to the judge, and then bounce, and then another team picks up the board and just writes it down. It's not like that. It's like looking at other examples. So something to keep in mind. Marcus and Michael, another team hot mess. Yo, like, this was not what I was expecting for them. I thought that they were going to treat each other with respect. Not that they're disrespecting each other, but they are kind of being hostile with each other, especially with this like sharp object with the saw, and it's like bending all over the place. It was just, and they were actively saying, you gotta put, while I pull, you gotta push, which was the exact wrong strategy. I can't hate too much though, because if I was on the race, I would probably be making a fool of myself. So yeah, I also have to point out that it was funny to me that Dom of Rich and Dom, she was not thinking positive. She was even admitting it. So it's kind of ironic that the motivational speaker, like, it was hard for her to have motivation in the moment. But I also kind of enjoy that, because it's not like just because you're a motivational speaker doesn't mean that you're motivated all the time, right? It's just a little bit ironic. And yeah, I love Dom because she's Team Hot Mess Express. Lewis and Michelle also, just like, I thought someone was going to get hurt. I I mean, yeah, I don't have any further comments. But, I mean, look around the other room. If you're noticing Abby and Will are doing it fast, well, at least observe how they're doing it and then incorporate it, or at least attempt to. So, that's all I had to say about Saw. And then Smash. So, apparently there was a box of tools, and then it was up to you which tools you wanted to put in your toolbox to use to smash the ice. And one of them including a rubber duck, which Derek used to get the crowd rallied, and he also, I heard, used it so he can figure out like which tools were appropriate. So first he started with the chicken and it was like, and then the crowd would be like, no, boo, boo, and he was like, okay, and then like smack down the chicken, and then he would get the chisel, and then the crowd would be like, yeah, yeah. So I thought that was great strategy, using the audience to your advantage. Honestly, I don't think I would have thought about that in the moment, but it just shows you that, you know, you can use your environment and others to help you out in these ways that you may not have thought. At least not I would have thought. I also feel like I would have overthunk this and thought that there would be an appropriate technique that you had to use, but apparently it was just however you wanted to do it. Obviously, Derek displayed the best technique. In one of his videos, he talks about how he noticed that other ice blocks were like smashed into smithereens where others had like a clean cut to it. And so he realized that there must have been a correct technique. And so he chose those items that allowed him to do so. And that is very smart, especially when you're under pressure. All I gotta say is that Lewis got some beef with that ice cube. I don't know what the heck. Honestly, this guy's on pure adrenaline, y'all. He was burning calories with this and the saw, like more than, he was burning 3 times as much calories as many. Okay, I'm moving on. I can't speak. Okay. Okay, and then for the final clue. So, at each spot, you know, they have to, you know, put the thing together. I don't want to explain the mechanics of the race, y'all. You watched it. But the final clue leads them to the Frieden's Angel, also called the Angel of Peace. And so they have to park. Okay, so I'm going to read the clue verbatim. So once you put everything together, it reads, park in one of the available marked parking spaces between 22 Widdenmeierstraße and 25 of the same name. To cross Leopoldbruck or Prinzregentenstraße, the crosswalk is located underground. Okay, so I put it on Google. I might include the picture here. I don't know. I'm lazy, y'all. This is my first time. Give me some slack. But I put it on Google Maps, and it's just like little strip from like just like one block of parking. And it's right next to the bridge. And so it was very curious to me that both Marcus and Michael and Tim and Rex got lost, because the clue literally says to cross over. So, you know, you got to cross the bridge and then you go through the underground tunnel. So I don't know what went wrong. Oh, actually, I think I do know what went wrong. So if you listen to the clue, it says to cross Leopoldbruck, which I think translates as the bridge. To cross the bridge, the crosswalk is located underground, which might be confusing, because that might read like, okay, I have to take an underground crosswalk to cross the bridge. But if you look at the bridge, there's no underground crosswalk. Like, there's a river. Like, how else are you going to cross over? Just cross over the bridge and then the underground cross. So I do think that the clue was worded a bit weird, but I think the team should have still figured it out. So, yeah. And then also, the clue itself could have been a little bit harder. I feel like what they could have done was... What do I think what they could have done? They could have just used the object itself. Like, okay, what is this? You put it together and you have to figure out where it is. They've done something like that in the past, I think multiple times, where like either it's a stamp or a picture of a building, and then teams just have to look up really quick where it's at. And that's not arguably like too hard, and it's something that they could have done easily. Although they wouldn't know where to park, but I feel like I don't know. I haven't worked out the mechanics of it, but like I feel like the final clue could have been harder because it literally verbatim just spells out what they need to do rather than like a clue where they have to like figure out a puzzle. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna go through the placements now, and I'm gonna give my brief. I don't know brief because I'm verbose as heck. I am going to give my take on each team in the order that they had placed. So first is Derek and Claire. I love their celebration when they won. I just felt so good. I felt like I was celebrating with them. And if you don't know already, I watched Big Brother 23, even the live feeds, and Derek and Claire were one of my favorite house guests. And to see them on the race and do well, at least in this very first leg, it's very exciting. And so I don't know how it feels like or how they're being perceived by someone who didn't watch Big Brother, but some reasons I love them is they just have great energy. They're very smart and intelligent individuals. They're very charismatic, and they're just like a good time, you know? There's no snarkiness. Well, maybe they're a little snarky, but it's just good energy. Yeah, like the rest of this cast, it's good energy. Yeah, there's this like BB, like what is this like I feel like Big Brother teams do well on The Amazing Race. I don't know why. I haven't looked back, but like, I mean, spoiler alert. Cody and Jessica won in season 30. The only Big Brother team that didn't do so hot really is like Jeff and Jordan from like season 16. I mean, Brittany and Janelle didn't play so hot, but all the Big Brother teams like did way better than the Survivor teams. And then they did pretty okay during that season. So yeah, Big Brother is killing it with this. Another thing is that I liked how Derek was reading the clue on the way to the pit stop because he was confused too. He was like, "Wait, Claire, no, we have to go underground." But then the underground thing was further away, and so I liked he was reading a clue because it's not like you're just like, you know, going about and not really analyzing what you need to do. So I would have been confused like him. I love that they're Team Purple. I saw that Claire is wearing purple nail polish. And in Big Brother 23, she has this iconic dress that looks like Daphne from Scooby-Doo. And it's also purple. So yeah, they're fun personalities. And I'm glad that they're getting to show that on TV. Loved how Claire was like pointing at her watch when Derek was giving the fans like a show. And yeah, I think there are so many things going for them. I did watch Derek's video that he posted with only his subscribers only, and it was a great like 35-minute video. It was detailing their exact experience that wasn't showcased on the show. And he talks about how like Claire's parents, like they did a boot camp, they blindfolded them where they had to use a physical map to find a location, and obviously this is paying off in dividends. And I think that's what I gotta do if I apply to the race. Just like I have to get a family member to just blindfold me, and then I have to find a location. But yeah, okay. Second place team is Glenda and Lumumba. I thought they were hilarious, even more funny than I thought from their preseason interviews. I really liked the line where he said something like, "Yeah, I was looking directly at her and she was looking above my head." It's just like the kind of like this lighthearted self-deprecation. It's just very humorous, and it lines up with what I also think is funny. But yeah, they ran a very clean, solid race. It didn't appear that they got lost, and they got second place for a reason. They did take the apparently faster route, so that must have helped. But again, who knows with the traffic and all of that. So yeah, looking forward to what else they're bringing over in the season. I hope that they get more screen time as well. Quentin and Maddie, one of the teams that got the least amount of screen time, I thought. And I honestly didn't get too much of their personality. Obviously, they did really solid here. being good at directions and beating Emily and Molly to roll the keg for even though Emily and Molly left earlier. So yeah, it's looking good for them. I did see the preview for next week. Apparently they don't realize that the location is in Austria and they're still in Munich. So who knows what's going on with that. But okay, and then fourth we got Linton and Shriek. So from my cast assessment video, I told everyone that I love father-daughter teams, Linton and Shriek included. I am loving them. I like how, similar to Derek and Claire, they took the time at the beginning to figure out all of the locations before heading on out. They clocked the right strategy with the saw, and then Shriek is using German to interact with the locals. Like, everything that they did in this episode was respectable and something that I like to see in a racing team. So even though they're a father-daughter team, do not count them out. Okay, next is Emily and Molly. They're much smaller. This is my first comment. They're much smaller than I thought they were. Not that I thought that they were super tall, but like when put against at the starting mat, when they're all in a semicircle, I think they're next to like Abby and Will or like Lumumba and Glenda, and then I don't know. But the tall teams, and also Derek and Claire, and in contrast, they're just so tiny. But even more important is that they seem very competitive to me, and I appreciate, I don't know, I just got glimpses of hustle as they were finishing tasks. They're like, okay, move into the car, what's next, let's go. And they did overall really well at a solid 5th place. They even went from 10th to 5th, so I think teams got lost. But the other thing I think too is that in the beginning of the episode, they were talking about their strategy of picking the task that they thought was going to be closest to the river, and they were indeed correct. And that was crazy to me because I wouldn't think that would be a strategy of hypothesizing where you think the pit stop would be. I guess that makes sense, but I didn't think of that right off the bat. And so, yeah, they're smart. They're thinking about that stuff that I didn't even think about, and it paid off. Yeah, so I was worried about them because in their preseason interviews, they're talking about getting to know, they want to get to know each other, obviously, to make up for lost time. And of course, they're going to say that because that's what they should do. And honestly, for their preseason interviews, if every team is like saying, yeah, we're gonna win the race, and we're gonna be the most competitive team ever. If everyone does that, then it's gonna be not a compelling season because it's just they're so game body. And so I really appreciate what they're bringing to the season here, and I don't know, they might be a dark horse, y'all. So Marcus and Michael in 6, honestly, Team Hot Mess Express, at least one of the 3 of them. Everything they did this episode was like a big red flag for me. That's like off the top of my head. They only find on the map the first location. I don't know what I'm saying. List of red flags right off the back. They only find one location at the beginning at Nymphomith Palace, and they're just like, let's just go there. I think they got lucky that like the route they took was like not a bad one, because it could have been bad for them. Number 2, they're just hustling through, like putting the keg over the thing, and it's like, obviously that's not gonna work, y'all. So there we go. 3, their sawing technique was just messy. Yeah. 4, they're getting lost. What else is bad here? 5, they're like beating each other down and putting the other down and getting mad at each other. And I get that's like a sibling thing, not all siblings are like that, but that's a common thing to bicker with your sibling. But there's red flags all over the place, contrasted to like a Linton and Shriek. Like everything they did was great. So yeah, they're too hasty. They're not even good at tools than I predicted. Not good with the directions from what we've saw, even though one of them is like a pilot. Yeah, it's just it's not looking good for them, Okay, Tim and Rex are in team number 7. Our team number 7. We got some funny lines from Rex, which I appreciated. I think that's what I wanted from the preseason. I was like, okay, if Rex can chime in every now and then about what he's thinking in his mind, provide that quick comedic relief, I'm here for it. I actually wouldn't mind if they lasted for a few more episodes, just to get some of that banter. And it's nice to also have like diversity in teams. So there are a lot of dating couples, y'all. A lot of heterosexual dating couples. And so Tim and Rex, like being like the older people and not in a relationship, it just gives that diversity to the season in terms of like pre-existing relationships. Okay, what else? They also show that the physical aspect is not the most important aspect of the race, and not to knock Tim down, because he actually looks pretty jacked himself. But Rex is obviously the one who, even though he lost like a lot of weight for the race, is just not as physically adept as the other teams. But if you're smart and if you have some hustle in you, you're gonna get the challenges done, and they prove that today. Abby and Will, I didn't get a lot from them. Other than Abby kind of screaming, and like there's like one shot at this when Phil says go, and then Abby starts screaming, and then I think like there's like a random shot of a bird on a log or a fence, and it just flies away. Like Abby's voice just like scared all the forest creatures out. So that was very interesting editing that they just had to put there, of course. In Derek and Claire's interview, one thing that made me feel less inclined that they're gonna do well, it might just be a learning curve, but apparently Derek and Claire and Abby and Will were kind of had an agreement at the beginning to work together, and Will was writing step-by-step instructions and not even indicating where the location was on the map. And so Derek was like, okay, you do that, and then I'm going to circle the locations. And Abby and Will apparently ended up just following Derek and Claire, rather than, navigating themselves. So it doesn't look too hard for them in terms of the navigation. Rich and Dom, I love them in a way that I don't think they're going to go far. And I'm not like rooting for them, but I appreciate the energy that they're bringing to the season, which is chaos and messiness. They are just their adrenaline is just spewing out of every orifice. Okay, that sounds really bad. Yeah, it's just funny to me because in the car on the way to Saw, we hear Dom like centering herself and hyping herself up and leading with love and light and very meditative, right? And then jump into the challenge. It's just full on chaos, like not taking things slow, probably not thinking things through. And then it's just funny with like it's just like the meditative energy versus the high energy. And then when they finished the keg rolling, Dom like takes off her mittens or gloves and just like smashes into the ground. And it's like wow, it's like I love it because it just shows how in it they are for the race. There's a difference between being in it for the race and actually being good at the race. But I just appreciate their energy. So Lewis and Michelle, didn't look not a great showing for them. They were possibly the slowest at the sawing. And so, I think there's going to be a redemption arc for them because they need to step it up. We got a little bit of personality from them, but I think overall they seem like frustrated at that they weren't doing well. And then we saw a little bit of, I guess, both of their frustrations at Saw, especially. Then we have Aubrey and David, and interestingly, they finished the challenge in 12th, but they arrived in 11th. And I looked at the distance between the challenge they finished at Smash to the pit stop versus Asa and Nita's Roll the Keg to the pit stop, and it was very negligible. One of them was like 11-minute drive, the other was 12-minute drive. And so I don't know like who got lost or who got what, but maybe traffic was like the biggest factor here. So yeah. And because David and Aubrey finished in 12th after the challenge, it tells me that they are really like counting, like the producers must be timing like the when people finish the challenge to make sure that it's accurately portraying like actually what went down. Yeah, and their navigation skills need to pick it up because they did the exact same route as Derek and Claire, and the difference in time between Derek and Claire checking in and Aubrey and David checking in probably wasn't due to challenge strength. It was just the navigation skills. So, and then Asta and Nina, wow, they fooled me because in their confessionals throughout the episodes, they were happy. You couldn't tell that they got eliminated, and here they are eliminated. I watched multiple interviews that they did, exit interviews, and they claimed that two things went wrong. One was that they were taking too long getting directions at the start, and two, they took 5 to 6 attempts at the barrel roll, and apparently there was a 2-minute time penalty that they had to sit out. I also wonder if they just got lost a little bit too, and maybe the route also did them in. So some lessons that I have gleaned from their interviews is you definitely want to get used to contact lenses before the race, because apparently Nina tried new contact lenses on the day of the race, and they were drying her eyes out and she couldn't see that well, couldn't see the map well. Maybe that affected her ability to roll the keg. So definitely want to get used to the contacts, because I wear glasses and I feel like it'd be advantageous to wear contacts. So I gotta get used to it like 2 weeks before. Anyhow, I learned that they were using an automatic car during the race, at least during this episode. And so it was interesting because I wasn't seeing any like stick troubles, and it was because they weren't driving stick. But I mean, you got to watch these Asta and Nina interviews. If you're watching this, you're probably a super fan, because there's no way you would have sat through 40 minutes of me talking if you weren't. So you probably watched all the Asta and Nina interviews, but my gosh, like what personalities they are. Like they have more personality in them than I think collectively in some seasons of The Amazing Race. Like there are some dual seasons out there, but Asta and Nina like just carry all of that and more. So I cannot express enough how much I feel like we had missed out on them. And if there was any like redemption season, I feel like they should be on it, truly. Some things about the mat overall is that I really wanted to see the reactions to what place they are, because the only teams that were like told that what place they were in that we saw were Derek and Claire, and then Aubrey and David, and then us and Nina. And then the other thing too, Phil says you are the blank team to arrive, third team to arrive, first team to arrive. That doesn't like ring and bang as much as you are team number 3, you are team number 1. Like more succinct, more pronounced, and like what's this like you arrive, you are the third team to arrive? Because usually when he says that, it's like, you are the 5th team to arrive. However, you have incurred a 30-minute penalty because you didn't pick up the clue at the thing. You know, and so it's like a little bit like more monotone. So I don't know what the decision here is to do that. Yeah, the guy with the mustache, I appreciated when Derek complimented his mustache. And instead of saying like thank you, or like in plain English, or like in German or something, he's like, thanks man. Like Like he sounded super American. So I thought that was funny. So some lessons overall. So I wanted to include this in my recap in this video because I'm trying to get on the Amazing Race, y'all. And so this is not only, I think, helpful for me, but it could be also helpful for you. Anyhow, so some lessons. It's not over till it's over. And now this doesn't apply to Austinina because it's over when it's over for them. But when Quentin was describing that his mindset was, you can't look at the shot clock. You got to keep on going, and then got that keg and had that last push. If he didn't have that mindset, he wouldn't have pushed that keg, and they would have to done it over again and do that 2-minute penalty. And so in the scramble, that it seemed like the teams were finishing relatively close to each other in placement. These small minutes matter, and so it's not over till it's over. Don't ever look at the shot clock. Second lesson is get used to contact lenses before the race. Lesson number 3 is that there's usually a smarter way to do a physical task that isn't just pure brute strength. So if you realize you're doing a task that involves a tool and a task that's not just pick up this heavy object and put water in a barrel or something like that, if it's not just brute strength, observe around you. Figure out how to use the tool efficiently. And then see how the crowd is reacting to you. Because if they're laughing at you, maybe you just have the completely wrong way of doing something. This also applies to the way that Derek used the appropriate tools for the ice. If they're giving you a lot of tools, maybe there is one combination that works the best. For the scramble, it seems like as of now, we just have one example. You want to find all the locations first. There is no need to get Google Map directions, especially if you're in a metropolitan city, because you're bound to get lost anyways, and if you know how to use a physical map, then you're never lost. And once you find all the locations, do it clockwise or counterclockwise. And then lesson number 5 is, and I just kind of said it, is just be good at map reading. Like, you shouldn't be going on the Amazing Race if you cannot read a map, because you are bound to make a wrong turn. There is no team out there that just doesn't make wrong turns. It's going to happen. But your ability to bounce back and correct yourself is what's going to count the most. So overall thoughts, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I feel like there are so many critics for The Amazing Race, but I enjoy the show for what it is. And the Scramble provided a fresh new take onto the episode that didn't make me hate it. I love this way better than U-Turn. I think it's way more fair, and it brings new chaotic energy. And because they're not going to do it every leg of the race, I think it's fine. Change it up a little bit. I think it's very inoffensive of a twist overall, and it brings in new concepts, and it makes me more engaged as a viewer, and it takes me through and makes me live just a smidge vicariously through the racers in terms of their anxiety of not knowing where they are in the race. So I have only good things to say. Overall, I give this episode an 8 out of 10. I do feel like the challenges could have been way harder. That's my qualm with the most recent seasons of The Amazing Race, specifically the US version, is that the challenges are just way too easy. And yeah, and then some of the teams we didn't know as well, like Aubrey and Will. Oh, not Aubrey and Will. Aubrey and David. Maddie and Quentin. So we need to learn more about them. So if Amazing Race producer is watching, make your challenges harder. The final clue, make that harder as well. Just don't spell out like you can park here. It's pretty obvious. So yeah, this is my first recap video. It did go a little bit long. It went way longer than I thought it would be, But if this is the content you enjoy, please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I currently have a whopping 0 subscribers. So if you are the first subscriber, like, feel free to comment. Like, I would love to shout out you. You would be the first subscriber of the Superfan Podcast, and we would love to have you on board. Honestly, I just want this. I kind of want to just communicate, or not communicate, just like talk to other people who are just as obsessed over The Amazing Race as me, because there is no one that I know that geeks out about this stuff like me. And even though I may not be like the best talker or get my points across quickly, I hope it shows like how much I love the show. So with that said, I'm ending the episode here. Thank you for tuning in. I will try to get the second episode more quickly, and not like the day before the next episode arrives, but we shall see. Okay, I hope everyone has a great day. Take care.